There is a sentence forming in someone's mouth right now, not a thought anymore, not the vague, shapeless wanting to say something that has been living in them for weeks or months or however long this has been building. An actual sentence, specific words in a specific order, arriving one by one into the part of a person where language finally crystallizes out of feeling and becomes something that can be spoken out loud to another human being. The sentence is about you. It is for you. And the reason they have not said it yet, the only reason, the single solitary, has nothing to do with not wanting to reason, is that they have been trying to find the version of it that is equal to what they actually feel. Trying to compress something that has the weight and the texture and the specific accumulated density of everything they have been carrying into a form that language can hold without the meaning leaking out around the edges. Language keeps being insufficient. They keep trying anyway. Here is what I know about this person. They are not someone who struggles to express themselves in general. This is not a person who walks through the world with their interior life perpetually locked behind an inability to find words. In other areas, professional contexts, conversations with friends, the ordinary social exchanges that make up the texture of a day, they are capable and sometimes even eloquent. Words are not the problem. You are the problem. Not as a accusation, as the most specific possible compliment. You are the problem in the sense that what they feel when they consider the task of talking to you about this is not the ordinary challenge of finding the right words. It is the specific, extraordinary challenge of finding words that are proportionate to something that exceeds what words are built for. Have you ever tried to describe a color to someone who has never seen it? That is the project they have been engaged in, trying to use language to communicate something that language was not designed to carry at this particular frequency. And every draft they compose in the private space of their own interior arrives slightly below the weight of the actual thing and gets discarded and started again. They have started again many times. This time they are not going to stop before it is finished. Let me tell you what has changed. Because the wanting to talk is not new. That has been present for a while, building the specific, slow pressure of something contained too long. What is new is the decision, the specific crossed threshold, no longer negotiable decision that the cost of not saying the thing has finally exceeded the cost of saying it imperfectly. Something happened that tipped the scale. I feel it clearly as a moment, though I cannot always identify the external trigger. Sometimes it is a thing that occurred, a piece of news or an encounter or a conversation with someone else that reframed everything. And sometimes it is nothing external at all, just an interior moment. The private, quiet, completely unremarkable moment where a person is in the middle of an ordinary day and suddenly, without ceremony, the question of whether to say something resolves itself. Not dramatically, with the specific, almost anticlimactic quietness of something that has finally become obvious. Of course, they are going to say it. Of course. Why has this been complicated? The thing that needs to be said, and the person it needs to be said to is you, and there is no version of the future where this continues to be left unsaid that is better than the version where it is said. The clarity of this arrives not as a dramatic realization, but as the simple recognition of something that was always true and has finally been allowed to be obvious. They are going to talk to you. The decision is made, the sentence is forming, the only variable left is timing. They are going to talk to you. The decision is made, the sentence is forming, the only variable left is timing. Let me speak to what their preparation has looked like, because they have been preparing, not in the deliberate sit down and plan way of someone executing a strategy, in the involuntary cannot stop doing it way of someone whose interior life keeps rehearsing something without being asked. They have had this conversation with you hundreds of times, in the shower, during commutes, in the specific generous emptiness of 3 in the morning when sleep has vacated and the mind does whatever it wants with the available space. Every version slightly different. Every version reaching for something the previous version got closer to, but did not quite capture. Every version being held up against the interior standard of, does this actually say what I mean? And finding itself fractionally short. The versions have been getting closer. You would not believe how close the most recent one got. There was a draft, not a written draft, an interior draft, the kind that forms in the mind with the same specificity that a written draft has, but that exists entirely in the private space of a person's own awareness, that was very nearly right. That said, the thing with something approaching the weight of the actual thing that arrived in their mind with such completeness that they almost reached for their phone before something made them pause. Not doubt, not uncertainty about the feeling or about you. Something more like the specific superstition of someone who has been holding something precious for so long that releasing it feels like the most important thing they have ever done, and they do not want to do it in the wrong moment or the wrong form or with the wrong energy around it. They are looking for the right moment. It is closer than they know. Now, the words, because the title promises them, and I am going to deliver them as specifically as the energy will allow, which is more specific than you might expect. What they say is going to contain 3 things, not necessarily in 3 separate sentences, possibly all woven together, but 3 distinct threads that run through whatever the actual words end up being. The first thread is duration. They are going to reference time. How long they have been feeling this, how long they have been navigating the interior project of carrying what they carry about you without it being named between you. The specific number or period does not matter as much as the fact that they name it at all, because naming the duration is a form of accountability, of saying, this is not new, this is not impulsive, this is not something that arrived recently and has not been tested by time. This has been here for a while and it has not diminished. You are going to feel the weight of that duration when they speak it, because it means something different to receive feeling that has been sustained across time than to receive feeling that is fresh. Sustained feeling has a different quality. It has been tested by the ordinary, by the days when they were tired or distracted, or when the easier choice would have been to let it go and it survived those days. The survival is the evidence. The second thread is specificity. They are not going to say something general. They are not going to offer you the kind of feeling statement that could be said to a category of person rather than to you in particular. They are going to say something that could only be said to you, something that reflects the specific, attentive, paying close attention quality of what they feel, which is calibrated to the actual you rather than to a version of you they have constructed from a distance. They might reference something small, something you did or said or were in a specific moment that they have been carrying, a detail that most people would not have noticed or would have noticed and forgotten. The fact that they noticed and kept it is going to tell you when they name it more than the naming itself. The third thread is the ask, what they want, not as a demand, not as a condition, as an honest offer with an honest question embedded in it. Something that says, here is what I would like, and here is why, and here is the question of whether you would like it too. Said with the specific vulnerability of someone who has organized their interior life around a want for long enough that naming the want out loud to the person it is about is genuinely exposing. They are going to expose themselves to you, not because they are certain of the outcome, because the uncertainty has become livable and the continued silence has not. They are going to expose themselves to you, not because they are certain of the outcome, because the uncertainty has become livable and the continued silence has not. I want to speak to that silence for a moment, the one that has existed between you and this thing that has not been said, because it is not an empty silence. It is one of the loudest silences you have ever been inside. You have felt it in the specific, slightly pressurized quality of certain exchanges with this person, where what was being said was clearly not the totality of what was present, where the surface conversation was happening and underneath it something else was happening, and both of you were aware of the something else without either of you moving toward it, where the ordinary words had the texture of a cover story for the actual story. That silence has weight. It has been accumulating weight since the first moment this person understood what they felt for you and chose, for whatever combination of reasons, not to speak it. Every interaction that occurred inside that understanding, without naming it, added to the weight. Not unpleasantly, there is a specific quality of charged silence that is its own form of intimacy, that communicates something real, even in the absence of words, but cumulatively, until the weight of the unsaid became comparable to the weight of the saying, and then exceeded it. The silence is about to speak, not in the abstract sense, in the completely literal sense of the person who has been holding it finally opening their mouth and letting the words that have been forming inside it for all this time find their way out into the actual air between you. That air is going to change when the words enter it. You are both going to feel the change. I want to speak to what it is going to feel like to be in the conversation when it actually happens. There is going to be a moment early before they have said the main thing in the first few exchanges where the conversation has not yet arrived at its destination, where you are going to feel it coming. A quality in the exchange that is slightly different from the usual quality of your communication with them, something with more weight underneath it, something that makes the space between the ordinary sentences feel denser than it should be for the words being said. Trust that feeling. It is accurate. It is your perception registering what is already present in the conversation before it has been named. And the reason it matters that you trust it is that trusting it will prepare you for what comes next, not in the defensive, bracing sense, but in the open, available, I am here for whatever this is sense that makes the conversation land the way it deserves to land. Because they are going to need you to be present, not performing presence, actually present in the specific, undefended, genuinely listening quality that you are capable of when you allow it. That presence is what this conversation requires from you, not a response you have prepared, not a managed version of yourself that has already decided how to receive what is coming before it has arrived. Just you here, available to whatever is actually being offered rather than to your anticipation of it. That is a harder ask than it sounds, and I believe you are capable of it. Let me speak to something that might be sitting in you right now as you listen to this. A question, not about them, about yourself. The specific, slightly uncomfortable question of what you actually want from this conversation, of whether the thing they are about to offer is something you have been wanting them to offer, or whether the complexity of your situation makes the wanting itself complicated. Because it might be complicated. You are not required to have a clean answer ready before the conversation happens. You are not required to know in advance exactly where you stand and what you feel and what you want the outcome to be. Real conversations, the kind that carry genuine weight, do not require prior certainty from both parties to be worth having. They often produce the certainty that did not exist before them. What you are required to have is honesty with yourself first, in the quiet between now and when they reach you, about what you have been feeling, about the parts of it you have been managing rather than inhabiting, about what you would want if you were allowed to want it without any of the complications that make wanting feel risky. What would you want if wanting were free? Sit with that, because what they are about to say is going to ask you, directly or indirectly, explicitly or through the quality of what is offered, to answer it. Something specific to a portion of you watching. For some of you, this conversation has been attempted before. There was a moment, possibly more than one, where it almost happened, where the energy between you reached a point of such concentration that the thing being left unsaid became almost audible in the silence, where one or both of you pulled back from the edge of the conversation before it could begin. This time they are not pulling back. And the difference is not in the amount of feeling. The feeling was always this significant. The difference is in what they have decided to do about it. The difference is the crossed threshold, the made decision, the version of themselves they have arrived at that can hold the vulnerability of this without retreating. For others of you, this is the first time. There has not been a previous attempt, only the building of something that has not yet been spoken between you. The conversation is going to feel like a beginning, like the first movement in something that has been waiting to start. Both versions carry the same essential quality. Something that has been held is about to be released into the space between you. And the space between you is about to change permanently. Both versions carry the same essential quality, something that has been held is about to be released into the space between you. And the space between you is about to change permanently. Let me speak to the people around this person because they exist in this reading and their role in what is happening is not nothing. The people close to this person know not everything, not the full interior picture of what has been building or how long it has been building or the exact quality of what is felt, but enough. They have been receiving signals for a while. The specific, ambient, slightly too present quality of your name in this person's conversational life. The way certain topics adjacent to you get more attention than the topic warrants. The specific quality of how they respond when someone mentions you that is not the response of a person who feels ordinarily about someone. Some of those people have said something carefully in the sideways way that people who care about someone approach things that are not their business to press a question with too much gentleness behind it. A comment that created a brief window for more to be said before the window closed. A moment where the unspoken thing became briefly speakable and the person who needed to speak it chose not to yet. Those moments primed this one. Every conversation where the thing almost surfaced and then did not made the thing that much more present, that much more difficult to continue managing, that much more insistent in the moments between the conversations. The people around them are waiting to hear that it finally happened. They will hear it soon. I want to close by speaking to what happens after, not the outcome that is not mine to determine and not yours to control, but the texture of what exists after this conversation, regardless of how it resolves, regardless of what you say and what they say, and where the two of you land when the words have been spoken and received and responded to. What happens after is that you know, and knowing even when what you come to know is complicated or requires more conversation before it becomes clear, even when the initial conversation opens more questions than it closes, is always better than the particular quality of not knowing that comes from something significant being left unsaid between two people who are aware that it exists. The silence has weight. The conversation, whatever it contains, releases that weight. Both of you are going to breathe differently after it. Not easier necessarily, just differently. The specific, slightly lighter, actually inhabiting the situation rather than hovering above it way of breathing that belongs to someone who is finally in their actual life rather than in the suspended, waiting, not yet version of it. They are about to hand you your actual life, or at least the next version of it, with specific words in their real voice, saying something that has been true for a long time and has finally, irrevocably found its way to you. Be there when it arrives, all the way there.